different model than traditional relational databases. The document model is the key design choice we made, and it's why developers love working with MongoDB. Let's walk through what the different models look like in practice. A relational database is fundamentally Microsoft Excel on steroids. Both are made of rows and columns, organized into tables or sheets. Let's say we're building a patient record-keeping system for a doctor's office, and we're going to build it in Microsoft Excel. First, let's look at a small piece of that system, the contact information for the patients. It starts simply enough with a sheet that has a row for each patient. That row has a unique patient ID number, their first and last name, email address, phone number, and home address. But what if we want to add a second phone number for a patient? Maybe their work number, or their cell phone number, or even an emergency contact number. We could just add more columns, but the same issue comes up for addresses. Work, home, and even previous addresses are things you might need. If we just keep adding columns for all of the patient's contact information, we'll eventually have a bloated, mostly empty, inefficient table like this. So instead, in our Excel model, we'll create a separate sheet for phone numbers, and each row in that sheet is just the phone number, the patient ID it refers to, and a label like home. We'll do the same thing for addresses. We already need to go to 3 different sheets just to look at a single patient, and we're only at the tip of the iceberg, and haven't even thought about any medical data yet. Add in more sheets for medications, more sheets for office visits, more sheets for emergency contacts, lab results. You can see how this gets out of hand. This is exactly how developers work with data in relational databases. In real-world applications, it's common to have the data for a single thing, like a patient, spread out over dozens of tables. This adds a massive amount of complexity to the application, and that has 3 big drawbacks. The first is that it's just frankly hard for people maintaining the application to understand. Second, it makes adding features harder because there's so much more to account for. And third, pulling data from so many places is inefficient, and the application needs dev code to deal with this. Imagine if this was done in the real world. The doctor's staff had to pull names from one cabinet, phone numbers from another, and addresses from yet another cabinet. You can see how complicated and slow that would be. MongoDB takes an entirely different approach. Data is stored in records we call documents. Just like physical medical records, one patient's document can have 3 phone numbers, 2 addresses, and 20 prescriptions, and it can live right next to another patient document that only has 1 phone number, 1 address, and no prescriptions. Records always try to have the same number of columns. Documents let you structure data in a way that is efficient for computers to process and natural and easy for humans to read. This is incredibly powerful for developers because they don't have to make their applications
this kind of document is much more friendly than the table
their applications
in the database.
In a natural way. It also means that they can adapt, add in new data when they need to, without worrying that a simple change is going to break everything. In addition to the document model, MongoDB is fundamentally different from legacy databases because it natively knows how to coordinate multiple servers to store data. That makes MongoDB something called a distributed database, and it allows MongoDB to provide 3 features that developers and architects would otherwise have to build for themselves, saving them massive amounts of risk and work. First, fault tolerance is natively built into MongoDB. By keeping redundant copies of the same data on different servers, a single server failure doesn't affect the application. Second, MongoDB seamlessly scales across multiple servers to store and process data. So as data volumes and performance requirements grow, we just add more servers instead of upgrading to million-dollar mainframes. This is also great for cloud environments, where spreading load across machines is by far the best way. And third, you need to move data to where you need it, so you can keep data near users around the globe for fast access. The combination of MongoDB's document model and distributed systems components is what gives MongoDB such an advantage over relational databases. Beyond offering the leading modern database, we've also built management tools to help operations teams provision, configure, secure, monitor, backup, restore, and upgrade MongoDB clusters. This is critical to making MongoDB suitable for the most demanding use cases and for organizations with strict SLAs and operations requirements. We designed MongoDB for the cloud, and MongoDB has been a widely used cloud for some time. But more and more customers are interested in building their applications with components offered as a service. To meet this need, we release MongoDB Atlas, our database as a service. Atlas enables our customers to consume MongoDB as a service without having to worry about managing the database. MongoDB Atlas is available on the leading cloud platforms, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform, giving our customers the flexibility to select a public cloud provider of their choice, avoiding vendor lock-in, and without having to rewrite any code. These innovations are driving more and more organizations to adopt the platform.
Instead, just like many other cloud service, you can go to the cloud service, then by clicking several times, you can create your own database. So today's topic is the MongoDB. So today we are going to talk about what is the MongoDB and what are the characteristics of such a MongoDB and some example. The feature of the MongoDB, the CRUD is how to create, how to insert, how to retrieve, and how to update and delete the data. The data means document here. So before that, we need to talk about definitely what is a document and what are the characteristics of such a design. From the designing point of view, how we can create such a document database using the MongoDB, and some other features such as index, relation, pipe, replication, sharding, and so on. We will talk about such a main feature of MongoDB, then followed by the exercise lab regarding to the MongoDB. The current version of the MongoDB is 4.something, but we are going to use the older version. That the basic feature are not changes. So based on what is that? Virtual machine that you download. So we are going to use the MongoDB based on that virtual machine. Or if you do not have the downloaded virtual machine, you can easily go to the MongoDB right now and download and install. It's very simple. Then the features are because we are going to use the MongoDB, the shell, like the MySQL shell, so it doesn't make any difference. So you can download. If you do not have the virtual machine, don't worry. You can just download and install. Then you can start the exercise. Before we start, I'd like to check the progress of the project, as I announced. So due date of I already talked about the exercise lab today, and I think the next page, the due is on the November 2nd, right? The Friday. So by Friday, you need to basically install and collect the data or create the data set and then design and create the schema if you need it. Otherwise, you need to create the storage, then insert, and implement the very basic application program. So like what you did in your advanced database design. Okay, so how much you guys did? First, any team, I think so far one team changed the project topic because it's not feasible to our project because they do not provide many the options to create. The one team changed it. Any other team who want to change the topic of your project? Okay, then we are going to go for those assigned project for each team. So for each team, I will check the current status. The group number 1, MongoDB, okay?
The database is created, but one error I'm getting. So maybe after this lecture, I'll be
able to. So you guys need to collect the data or the data set or synthesize the data set, okay? And then also at that time, think about what kind of application. Mostly you can use something, the hello-world.com style, the sample provided by such a NoSQL database or programming environment. So it may take a time also, but that's one thing you guys need to do. NoSQL, okay. The Scylla, group number 3, anyone? So nobody come here. So Neo4j. So Neo4j is the Sidon and Manisha. No, not here today. And Foundation DB, group number 1.
We are reading manuals to create, to set up the Foundation DB, and we're still working on the data sets, about which one to choose. So we'll be doing it this week.
So bigger is the better, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, most of the NoSQL databases are based on the big data, okay? The bigger is the better, but you can always start from the small data set and try to implement the get news, use them if they provide any shares that HBase share or the MongoDB share or MySQL share, such a share, the interface you can start with such a share script. Some of the NoSQL database, they do not provide such a shared interface. Instead, you need to code directly to do something, to create the data or get document or insert data. You need to do the programming directly. Okay. Like the MongoDB, some of, very rarely, still rare, some of them has the cloud-based. It's okay to use the cloud-based. If GCP is available, for the GCP, you don't have to find such a NoSQL database on the GCP. Left-hand side, the menu. Always a search. Then they provide a launcher. Launcher means the company, like the MongoDB. I will show you the example. MongoDB, they already set up the virtual machine. That is pre-installed. If you click the launcher, then they copy such a virtual machine for your service. Okay, so it's not the official, the GCP Google service, unlike the BigQuery or the Django, the app engine, but each vendor already create the configure the NoSQL database, cloud-based. So you can use such a thing if your selected database provides such a service. And the Oracle NoSQL, Hashi Kumar, Venkata, no, not here. And React TS.
Professor, our database is very efficient on time series based data set. But whatever data set that we are getting related to time series is related to machine learning. So we are trying to choose a data set which is efficient for our project.
So try to test with the sample data set that the React TS provide first. Then because the time series data set, depending on the data, the format are various. I'm not sure whether that's directly. First, start with the sample. Okay, so probably the company provide the kind of demonstration or the hello world side, the database. Then use it. Then after you are successfully test whatever, then try to find the similar data set. Which are based on the time, and then sometimes you need to do pre-processing or manipulate. So you need to do like the big data course. You learn the map reduce, so you can emit the sum of the information that you need. So from the log data, so time and the IP address, the emit, then insert to your database like that. And the group number 5 changes the database. It's ODB. Okay, I will change this one. So you guys need to speed up.
Yes.
Memcache? Yes.
Sir, we have selected database and also load, but while loading into HBase database, we are facing some issues because the services are not getting up properly. Zookeeper is giving issues, so we are just trying on that. So probably we will consult with the GA after.
So what is you want to change the database or the?
Till now, we don't want to change it.
So by today, why don't you try? So if you cannot address the problem.
It's not a problem with this database. It's a problem with the Hadoop file system that the other services, the zookeepers and all, those are not getting up while loading into HBase database system. So we just want to get it up. So I think there are some of the processes which you need to execute or the commands need to be executed, which I am not aware of.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to keep trying? Okay. Azure, the Cosmos DB? Any of the member? Oh, yes.
We found the data set.
This is based on the Microsoft Azure the cloud service. Okay, you don't have to install. Instead, you need to create.
Can you, we create the database, we put some data into our database.
Okay. Okay, so except a couple of teams, and also the absent team, I think so far so good. So I'd like to extend the due date of the third phase by the next week, the Friday. Okay, and we will have the And one, is this a Wednesday or Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Which means we do not have class on during the Thanksgiving holiday. Yes, so Wednesday is closed. So we will have a makeup class on Tuesday.
At what time?
So probably 8:30 p.m. So think about because we had a one-day class a week, so we missed the entire class. So I will think about the way to, because I'd like to see before the Thanksgiving, I'd like to see the implementation. So this is today is this is January. So it's November 2nd. So due date is the 9. Let's see this way. The due date is the 6th. So before the next class. Okay, then the next week class, in the class I'd like to see each of team just a quick demo. You can just show your database and what you guys did and so on. So why don't we try? Why don't you try to finish the page 3 by the November 6th? But you still have a time to enhance after that. Okay, like for example, the one team just use the small data set because it takes some time. But with the small data set, you can implement something and show such an application or the program that connect to your database, and then explain what you guys do for the rest of the semester. Okay. For example, if we are using Azure the Cosmos DB, I never use that, but probably that service can utilize other service like the visualization, for example. Okay. We did a similar thing before, so why don't you think about such a, but by the next week, Wednesday, you guys need to install or set up and upload your data by the designing, like based on our discussion, or considering your database and data, like the Neo4j definitely need to consider the graph data or time series data and the other document data. So design that fit to your selected database. Okay.
Exactly do we submit?
You need to submit the instruction that you did so far, and any source code. But that is a kind of draft. So you don't have to fully implement all the functionality, but at least by the next week, the Wednesday, you guys need to submit your implementation. It's basically documentation, and then you can put whatever the information. It's not formal the writing yet, okay? Or any source code or anything, so you can put. Then based on that, even after the submission, you guys still working to enhance the project. Then also we'll have the presentation with the oral and poster and writing. Okay. And one more thing is, if you manage your GitHub site for this project, I will give the extra point. Okay, which means the GitHub, using the GitHub, if you manage the GitHub site, so for this your selected database project, so you can put the document, like the wiki style, the document, Wikipedia style document, and also any source code, any the screenshot, the image. But it will be definitely good for you guys for future. Nowadays, I heard many of your graduate senior students who mentioned about nowadays the interviewer, they'd like to see the resume based on the LinkedIn, and also they'd like to see your project experience based on the GitHub side. And if you have your own, you can create, and if somebody poke a lot, it will be better. Even though you do not have if you poke and use or participate in the other project, that will be also good for when you search the job. So please, so if it's optional, but I strongly suggest it's not for this the class, but for the future, why don't you maintain your own? If you do not create the GitHub, so why don't you create? So it's actually GitHub start from the version controlling system. So if you join any project or the company, they have the version controlling system. So like SVM.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not old-fashioned, it's used a lot, but nowadays the GitHub can be used for such a version. It started for such a version controlling, but nowadays it's used to share the project and the documentation. So why don't you think about the GitHub side for the documentation, and it will be definitely helpful for you. Okay, so due date is extended to the November 6th. Then until that time, you need to submit your source code or any document that you create, including the screenshot, anything. Okay. Before we start the MongoDB, have you ever used any of these? Probably yes. No? HTML is every day. And XML, nowadays not that popular, but when I was a student, 15, 16, the early 2000, the XML was really popular. And half of PhD students actually, they select the XML as a PhD dissertation topic. Because at the time we believed the XML can replace the relational database. Okay? Because at the time, still the problem, relational database is just too strong, the constraint. It's not very flexible. However, on the other hand, the XML is, so you can define your own schema, and then it's much more flexible. So the common thing of this for HTML, HTML, XML, X, whatever, so markup languages. So actually, history of such a markup language. Markup language. What is the idea of the markup language? ML. Any idea why the people use such a markup language for a while? You know when this guy started? When was the first time? It's 1960, actually. So I forgot the name of the professor who proposed this SGML. Actually, it was not called as SGML first time. It's something different name. Eventually, it's the name. But actually, it's before that time. So it's around the World War II, 1940 at the time. So the government and military, they had more and more the document information. Everywhere they typed and sent such a document, and they need to manage a bunch of the document. Then they thought about first we can take out the title and subtitle, date and author, and who authorized, and the keyword, something like that. Then, even though at that time we had the first computer, but it was not the general purpose computer. We had ENIAC or ANIBAC or such a electronic system-based computer system, but it's not like our personal computer system. So, but even at that time, people thought about such a demand of managing the document. Then at that time, somebody proposed, can we take out, extract such a title, then make the name of that contents as a title, and then the author and list of the author. Then eventually later in 1960, we had the SGML. The SGML is almost the first markup language in the history of such a markup language. So I'd like to quickly show the such a the what are they, then we will move to the JSON and the BSON, and then those are the actually the very basic the data item of the MongoDB. So, okay. So when we talk about the document, what are the documents? In other words, are you familiar with the document or data structure or object? Which one are you familiar with? Or which one do you prefer? Documents or the object or the something structure? Object. What is the object?
Something that has a format that was manual.
That's the data structure used in the application or the program. It's mostly in the memory. So we can use the reference of that object to access the data. However, think about because you are genius in computer science, you already know such a data structure. We are familiar with the object. But for the general human being, they don't know much about such an object. Instead, we are familiar with such a document as the founder of the MongoDB. I forgot his name, he mentioned. Because if you go to the hospital to see a doctor, there are huge cabinet. In the cabinet is the alphabetical order A, B, C, and your file is one of them. So you can see such a file. So in our real life, actually we manage such a data in a file. Okay? Then if you take a note like this, it's a document. So you can start from the course name and the day and the topic and the bullet. So depending on your characteristic personality, you can use the numbering or somebody use the section number, somebody use a bullet or whatever. But it's a document. Actually, the document is more human friendly. But however, due to the limitation of computing resource and power, we try to actually organize, structure such a data to access efficiently. One of the typical example is relational database model, relational model. Relational model, as I mentioned many times, they try to deal with the very large data. But if we deal with as it is, no, everything is different. So standardized. The patient should have a patient ID, name, address, and the prescription, like this. That's the rule. So if you want to add more information like the phone number, you need to add one more, the column. It's not simple in the real production system. What about the secondary, the phone number, or emergency phone number? Only for few data we need to create. We need to change entire the structure. So that is the problem of the relational database model. Actually, we are not very familiar with the relational database model. Instead, we like the document where we manage to keep the data. Think about the HTML. That is the next thing. So we start from the markup language HTML. So it's actually markup the document we define. So name is for the field. ID is 111. Like from the whatever the information or data in the document so this is the extract this one. At that time we ignore the format of or display of this document. Instead, we try to focus on the context. Okay? So, ID, then something address, and extract the address, and the 100, University of and so on. Then, if we mark up this, like this is the name, and then this is the data, this is the field name, the attribute name. Okay? So then the ID is the same thing, ID. So this is starting from the SGM. Main problem of such a markup language is we need to define this. If this is not organized, it will be really hard, just like when you just like as if you need to read all the documents from the bunch of scan data to find your information. Very similar problem if we do not organize. So by organizing this, so we can have some number of the tag, or sometimes it has the rule structure to define such the tag. Then that is a markup document. So when you display, that is called the rendering. So think about the HTML. So SGML, the main problem of the SGML was too much complicated. It's really complicated. Nobody understands such a rule or the format. So they try to simplify the markup SGML. Then take out some of the popular tag, like the title, or the body, and paragraph, and line, header, even header 1, header 2. Okay? Very limited. So these are the all. Then, when we have the internet error, the environment, so what is basically the internet? HTML. Internet is the connected network. Using what? Something protocol. It's the agreement between you and me. So if we communicate each other, we need to use, for example, English. If we do not use the language, at least the agreement, like this is 1 is a start, 2 is end, 3 is whatever. So we need to agree. So it's called a protocol. So for such a protocol, we define the network 7 OSI layer. Then we are focusing on such a TCP layer and IP application. So we are going to use the TCP IP, which require host name and the port number. If we know the host name and port number, we can find the server and node or the computer system that we want to communicate. Based on that is the internet. We can make a lot of service. One of them is you can transfer the file using 23, the port number. It's a FTP. And you can also log in the other server using Telnet. If you want a more secure the login, you can use the SSH and so on. Then each service uses a specific port. You can use such a port, but it's a well-known port. Among them, one of the well-known port is 80 or 80. Yes, that is the HTTP the server and HTTP protocol. Hypertext transfer HTTP protocol. Okay? Meaning is we try to make the service to request a file, and return that file, especially document. So actually, HTTP service, it doesn't have to be only HTML tag file. Any kind of file you can actually return. If we request and server will return such a server. Then people realize that can we simplify? So instead of sending all the formatting like the Word document size of Word document is usually bigger than other, right? The image is bigger. So can we send only such a simple information with the tag? So once you send such a tagged information, the receiver client like the Microsoft Explorer or the Firefox, any browser is a client that understands that this tag is a size font size 10 and it shows the align the middle. You don't have to specify, they know each other. So it's a limited tag, especially this one has the href, so hypertext. It can be used for the link of another location. So this is called the hypertext markup language, HTML. So it starts from the old version 1.0, 2.0, and it's getting higher than the more the text are included. This is another markup language. It's a document. Then Google actually they start their business by collecting such a document. The very basic data format of the Google are the document actually. Then they have to be the document data. So they thought about the big table and the big data solution. Eventually it will be Hadoop and the HBase, NoSQL database, and so on. Then go back to this. The main problem of the HTML is too limited. I want to put something, the name, but name is not here. No way. Always you can use a paragraph key or sometimes a header. So they try to make the flexible, extended version of HTML. That is XML. So XML is, this is a history of the HTML. Okay. Then the XML is extensive the markup language. You can actually define by yourself such a tag. Okay, which means they should have not only in the HTML you don't have to have such a definition of the tag. It's already standardized. But the XML you need to share such a DTD or something past other D together. But it's flexible. So because of that characteristic, people believed this one can be kind of the replacement of the relational database. So you can see even the XQuery. One of my friends actually had a PhD dissertation regarding to the query optimization for the XQuery. Really, still used this kind of the XML-based database, but not very much. Instead, we are using NoSQL database. So this is XML. So XML is actually it's a data structure. I try to regard this XML as a data structure to manage the data. Okay. Then nowadays, so we have such a markup language. Then continuing the use of the document, such a markup language, so we can have the JSON file. Somebody say, mostly, JSON is also kind of markup language. But actually JSON is the Java object for communication. When we communicate always, it should be standardized. So for the Java application, JavaScript, the communication, we'd like to make the standardized such as keeping the information, how to keep the information. So that is the JSON. So JSON nowadays is not only for the Java, it can be used for many other program languages. They provide their own parser. Parser, actually, if you read the research on the XML, you will see the XML parser. Parsing means, so any program language, any computer language, any language used in the computer, it's not like the human language, okay? But very similar as a human language, which means computer itself cannot understand the meaning, semantic of such a language. So, like one of the example is select, the from, the where, and the SLA is the employee, and the ID is 111. Even though you never learn about the SQL, you understand roughly meaning of the query. It's a SQL, the database, the structured query language. Computer definitely cannot understand. We need to compile. Sometimes it's called the interpreter. The detailed step of such a compiling is first we need to parsing. So this is a keyword. Then this is the symbol to return all of them. So then followed by the from. There are like the BNF at the select and repeat of the from and repeat of the table name and so on. So using such a BNF or standard form, normal form, B stands for every time I program. The BNF normal form, Bowker's, even N sometimes they're different, but I prefer use the normal, the form, standard form to interpret, to understand such a grammar, okay? To represent the grammar of the such a language using the such a BNF or other the lexical analysis and so on, that computer understands which one is value, which one is keyword, whether it's grammatically the correct or not. So then that is called the parser. So to understand the JSON file format, each program language provide the parsing parser for the JSON file. So JSON file can be used for such a to keep the data. Then each of them they support also string, number, boolean, and object and array, but their format is very similar as the markup language. So if you know the markup language, for example, let's see the example of this one. So first name is John, and separated by this one is a semicolon, and separated by the comma. We can have as many. Actually, there are limitations. So 10,000, 20,000, something like that. But it's almost you never reach such a limitation. So the first name is John. This is a value. This is kind of an attribute. Then sometimes you can use the nested, okay, for the address. So you can use another brace, left braces, right braces. The bracket used for the list. Okay, the phone number, there are two types of phone number, type phone, type fax, and so on. So this is the kind of a document, if we consider this one as a markup language. So if we store the data about the John Smith, you can do the same thing using the relational model. So you can define the user, and also you can define the address, and you can define the phone number. Maybe you need the 3 tables and normalize. But it's way so, it's much more complicated as you have seen from the video. Initial video. So if we are using the JSON format, nowadays many of the data analytics, they store the data as a JSON. Then if this data JSON format is stored as a binary, this is a text. They are based on the Unicode. What is a Unicode?
Use 16-bit.
16-bit what? That's more important. The 16-bit used for what?
To encode characters.
Any type, not 100%, but I believe most of the script. So it's not only a language, any kind of a script. It's standardized using the 16-bit, the Unicode. That is called the Unicode. Uniform code, okay? Standardized. There are history of the Unicode version 1, version 2, version 3, because we have more and more script. The latest one is what? Can you guess? Latest part of the Unicode. You are using every day. Emoji. So emoji is a part of the Unicode. So that's the reason, even though you are using iOS, I'm sorry, probably it's a Texas number. So, emoji is nowadays you can send a text message. Several years ago, if you send something emoji, if your friend does not have the same application, they cannot see. It's just weird the number and the combination. But nowadays it's standardized. So ASCII code is a kind of a subset of such a Unicode. It's an American standard variable. It's focusing on the alphabet. So, but if this one support the Unicode, which means it can represent the most, even you can put the emoji as a data. Okay, that is the JSON. So it's a very simple introduction of the JSON, but I strongly suggest you guys to learn about the JSON. If you are interested in the database, NoSQL database, also data analytics, and especially if we are using Python nowadays. So you can, if you know the Python, it's very similar as what? Dictionary, right? So you can easily convert. So such a the JSON, that definitely Python provides such a, what is that? The parser, the JSON parser, so you can use that. So this is a BNF of the JSON. It's very simple, the string and value. So that is called the object. So you can use the comma for the separator. You can use the array list of that, and for the value, it's for the such the data type looks like. Okay, so this JSON is much simpler than the XML, but much more flexible. So that is the reason nowadays, instead of using the XML, so we are using a lot the JSON. Then database, not database, so MongoDB use binary format of JSON, which is called the JSON. The difference is when we store such a JSON file, not the Unicode text file, it's converted to the binary. Okay, so that is a JSON. So if you are interested in such a data analytics and document database, definitely you guys need to study more about the JSON and the JSON file type, object type. So if you go to here, you can find more information. Then finally, we are ready to discuss about the MongoDB. When my son, right now he is 13 and going to 14 years old, but when he was 4 or 5 years, sometimes because he was born in the US, so he definitely learned the English as a mother tongue, but sometimes it's hard to communicate. So because he can understand the home language is Korean, but sometimes struggling. So one time when he was back from preschool, he said about the humongous. So sometimes if the kid stick on the one word, if that looks like cool, use a lot. At the time one time he used a lot of time humongous. What does that mean? Humongous. Huge. It's a big. Then somebody said MongoDB is from the humongous DB. It's a big data. As we discussed a lot, the origin of the NoSQL database actually is not only for the flexibility or the schema list, but actually from the large amount of data. So if we do not have such a big data, probably NoSQL, we didn't need the demands on such a NoSQL database. However, since we are dealing with the humongous, really large, big data, so we need something different, the database. That is the MongoDB. Okay. First time I thought Mongolian or something like that one, but it's in general it's a humongous DB, so which means these are the main characteristics of the MongoDB. It's open source, but recently MongoDB is in the Nasdaq, the stock market. I think the huge $1 billion, something like that. I heard many times from the senior student who graduated recently. They said in the market, job market, the requirement. One is program languages. If you if you see the question from the stackoverflow.com, still the traditional program language is the most asked question, the program language C or C++. It is true because nowadays even though we have a lot of the object-oriented program languages or high-level program languages, most of them are based on the C or C++. To understand the performance or the system, whatever, I still suggest. But nowadays, you can see more and more the Python. Python is demanded in the many of the area, the Python for the program language. For the data storage, still Oracle and MySQL or the SQL Server DB2 are most popular and mostly used DBMS. But if you remember the first class of this, I showed the chart and the pie chart. The fifth one was the MongoDB. So we have a lot in the market. Those who knows the relational database, not much. Who knows about the NoSQL database. Among the bunch of different the NoSQL databases, the MongoDB is still the one top priority. So MongoDB and the Python are the two basic requirement when you search the job nowadays. Even though you are working on the different like the web application or other, they usually ask the requirement of this one. So pretty much I think it is worthwhile to know about this. And this one is starting from the open source, but MongoDB actually they are right now in the MongoDB is in right now the NASDAQ, and it's document based. Specifically JSON, the BSON, the file type. So if you see the exercise lab today, you will realize you can directly actually create the JSON file format, the object, then insert. That's it. So that is the high performance and high availability. So in the terms of the cat theorem, what is for your reminder, what is a C? Consistent. We do not lose the consistent. All of the system actually, I know. So consistent. But most of the system keep the P, partial tolerance, because it's distributed. Then this MongoDB actually select the C rather than A, consistency, because even though they are the scalable, okay, then the local partition is the consistent. So it's in terms of cat theorem, this is the CP style, the database system. Okay, so we already discussed about the DynamoDB, HBase, but the MongoDB is one of the representative for the document database like the JSON format. So I don't have to replay the idea of such a motivation of the NoSQL database. So it's using a lot. So let me check it again. So every year, these are the list of the company who are using the MongoDB. I don't think they are using only MongoDB. Okay, yeah, as a part of the specific application, they are using the MongoDB. Okay, right. So more and more every year, I'm checking this time. Then they have more and more the company and user. Okay, where is it? And for the data model, it's a document based. So maximum each document is 16 megabyte, which is the limitation of what? Can you guess? BSON file. BSON file, the limitation, so it's limited by the requirement of the JSON and the BSON file. Okay? So document will be stored as a BSON file format. Then that has the field and value pair. Always a field and value pair. Who provide the field? Who provide the field? User. User directory. When they insert, create, that they provide. Then whatever, yes, really whatever. Okay? Whatever you want, you can create the new field every time. Which means you don't have to create the table schema. So even when you insert the first object, you don't have to create a table. Actually, name is not the table in MongoDB. MongoDB is called a collection. It's nothing but the collection of the data item. Data item is the document. So that is the data model, which means it's a really, really flexible schema list, the database. Okay? It has an index. So we will see such an index, the single level index, the multi-attribute index, multi-key index, and so on. Okay? This one has the table, but it's not called a table, it's called a collection. So you can understand that it's a collection of a document. Okay? Collection of the document. Okay, so it is important to understand the JSON format to understand any types of document, the database. Okay? So binary, the JSON is the BSON. Okay. So this is an example. You can see the left-hand side is a field, and this is a value. Sometimes you can this one, the outside the braces define the one object. So one object is the one document. Okay. Then always the first one is the underbar ID. Underbar ID is when you insert only CD, pop, state, the complement. This one will be automatically created. It will be used for what? Searching, which means it's kind of a primary key. But instead of you define the primary key for each the table, so automatically create this one, and this one also used for object ID. So in the object-oriented concept, what is the identifier of your object? Object ID, always. So that is the way to identify your object. Then in this BSON format, if you insert this data, this underbar ID field will be automatically created and assigned unique for along the entire database. So this will be used for searching also. So what kind of data type is support? So you can see the most of the popular, the data type, double, string, object, array, and so on, the Boolean, date, null, regular expression. What is a regular expression?
It's a formal way to set searching
string pattern. String pattern. So I probably emphasize on the importance of the regular expression in the operating system. Okay. So it's not only for the operating system class or for the string pattern. Nowadays, to simplify your programming level. So one of the way to simplify your programming is a functional programming using lambda and so on. Instead of the traditional way is always we define function or object. In that object, actually based on the class, including method. So we can call that method. Using method, we can use the object, like the string object or the other. So, but even the very simple, the function we need to create. So it's call and go to that, the memory address, and run and return back. It takes a time or complicated. So why don't we embed? It's kind of embedded function in your code. Okay, like simply the +1. So you don't have to create the +1 increment the function. Instead, inside your variable, you can just for loop. A is 1 through 10, but you can put the function, embedded function. That is the functionality, the programming, like the lambda. So Java 8 use such a lambda functional programming, and Python definitely, and the Scala, and many other program languages nowadays use that. And then regular expression used a lot for this kind of thing. Because nowadays, we need to find, if you already took the big data course, the main idea of the programming is map reduce. I will introduce it very briefly here also, because the MongoDB supports map reduce. So mapper means what? Our goal of the mapper is key and value. Extract the key and value. How can you extract? You need to do something, manipulating the string. Then find the pattern, the fifth space, then the after the year, like the 2018, then we can extract the value. If you do the programming, it will be much more complicated. So we can use such a regular expression. It's a standardized. So most of the program language provide the package or library to support this regular expression. So for example, dollar means 30, and the end is like this. So sometimes without recognition, you already use many of the regular expression in computer science. But it's a good time to know about the general purpose usage of the regular expression. Like the VI used a lot. Such an old-fashioned program, the application program use the regular expression a lot. Nowadays, it's one more time highlighted, spotlight, because of the data manipulation in data analytics. Okay, JavaScript and the symbol, and then timestamp. So such the types are supported by most of them. So this is an important field. It's automatically created. It's used for the primary key. Like the primary key is a unique and immutable, means you cannot change it. This one. It's not like the primary key. In the relational database, you can change the value. But here, it's once assigned, so you cannot change it. It's immutable. It's not array because it's a unique value. So it's very similar as a primary key, but it's actually object ID because we use the document considered as the document object. So this is a comparison between the SQL. Probably you know the SQL notation. So comparing to the SQL notation, you can understand. The table is a collection. That's the most different the data model, and it supports sharding. What is a sharding? It's a vertical or horizontal? Vertical is this. This is a horizontal. It's a horizontal partition. You can partition, like the New York employee is here, and the LA employee here. This is a Dallas, the employee. So we can partition by horizontal. So that is a sharding. So MongoDB support automatic sharding for the scalable purpose. Both of them support the index. It's the index of SQL is B plus 3 index. It's 3 values to balance the 3 index. On the other hand, this index is not like the B3 index. I will show you the example, then you can understand. So, not simple to explain right now, but if you see the example, you can easily understand. It's always ascending or descending order. Okay. For the join, so we will see that depending on the schema model, and not the schema model, data model, like one to many or many to many. So many side. Instead of the joining, so we will have something embedded. The structure means JSON inside we have. It's kind of, we have seen the pattern of the NoSQL database before. Basic idea of the NoSQL database model is combined. Denormalization. It's embedded. It's different name, but basic ideas are the same. So first we try to see the CIUD. CIUD means how to create, how to insert, how to read, how to update and delete. So first we need to insert this. So very simple. Go to the MongoDB website and download, and that's it. So if you are using the macOS, you can use the brew. So if you want, or manually you can install. So I strongly suggest to use the brew if you are using macOS. What is a brew? If you know, how do you insert a Python package? Pip. So almost the same. The style, the application, like the PIP, the pip style. So you can use the brew to insert the macOS package. So you can type the brew, always update, just like whenever you are using the such a live package, so you can update then the install. So brew MongoDB, that's it. Then install everything. That's simple. Then how can I make it bigger? I try to remember Command Shift plus, not this, Control Shift plus. Oh yes, Command Shift plus. So I already installed, but Windows also you can download. And one thing you need to do is you need to specify the location of your database. The location of your database. The default is /data/db. If I'm correct. Let me check. Okay. Data/db. Data/db. Otherwise, if you use the different name, you need to specify the location of your database. Then, whenever you use any types of model of database, if you install, there are two things you need to check. One is process. Okay, so there's no service on your computer without process. Through the process, you can do whatever you want. Then, always such a process use memory. So two things. Then the storage. People actually ignore the importance of such a process and the memory. Only focus on where's the storage, how to store the data. But the more important thing is how to use the memory, any types of the database. So, for example, if you involve any database project or any project that use database, please start the database. Please shut down the database. What's the meaning of starting up and shut down of the database? What happened when you start up? Different name? Yes. Start up. Creating the process. And result memory. Then plus several other things. Check the permission of the file, location, and something, the open and whatever. But these two main things will be happen startup. On the other hand, the shutdown, the clear the memory, then the gracefully terminate your process. So most of the job will be happen here. Then use the memory area for better performance. Okay. So for example, Oracle use, when you start the Oracle database, it has a DB writer process, log writer process, and something other process. 5 or 6 process will be starting together. And the memory, it reserved the memory area is called the global area, system global area, like the several gigabyte or usually half of your physical memory size. MongoDB is the same thing. MongoDB, when you think about if you installed any of your NoSQL database, so how to start? So Windows, that's the reason I do not suggest to use the Windows, because the Windows operating system does not use the shell, okay, environment, which means your process, daemon process, most of them are daemon process, receiving the request as a service program. How does a Windows operating system run the service program? Task manager. If you go to the task manager, you need to select the process as a service, so it's not much flexibility. But if you are using Linux or any shell-based interface, the operating system, you can start. So like for example, MongoDB, you can just type MongoDB, yes. So this is just the information for as a console. So start the MongoDB starting process ID. This one port number. It's a default, the well-known port number for MongoDB only. Okay, if you want to change it, there's the option. Okay, and it's a version 4, but probably you will use the 2 point something, and then the something that this is there for the x86, and no option is provided. This is the location /data/db. So if you install your MongoDB first, you need to specify this one. Otherwise, you need to specify. And you can see the cache size is the memory. So reserve the memory. This time the 3 gig will be the reserve. The maximum for each session is this one, and so on. You can change such an option when you start. Same thing for many other the DBMS system. Okay, then these are just the additional, the recovery, the loop, the such a thing, and it's a waiting. Okay, this is a service, the daemon process over here, service process. Then, if you wanna access this MongoDB, so MongoDB support the shell interface, like the MySQL in MySQL database, SQL Plus in Oracle database, like it has the Mongo. Then you can see the something information over here. It received the client metadata from the here, but 127 means it's a local loop, it's a local database. How can I access the remote? IP address or host name plus the port number 217 whatever. Okay, and it's an internal client. It's an internal name. So loopback. It's based on the loopback, and the type is this operating system type, macOS and x86, and so on. So right now I'm ready to use MongoDB database here. Okay. So it looks like they're very simple. That is one of the benefits of using such a NoSQL database. For example, Oracle, MySQL, or the other is much more complicated because it has a lot of features which you never use. But this one is the focus on that. Then you can do the whatever you want, create the data. So let me show you. It's very similar as the MySQL interface. So for help, so you can see some additional information if you type help admin, help connect. So in MySQL, if you want to see the database that you use, it's a test database, DB. And DBS is a list of the database. But this is the error. I don't know why it's error. Show DBS. Yes, show DBS. I'm sorry. So we have the admin, configure, and the local and test the database. So this is the size of the database. Probably the other admin and the config used for the catalog, the database, meta information of your database. So right now, if you want to change, you can use the admin or use the tester, and then for example, if you want to see the tables from in your the database, you can just, instead of a table, it's a collection. So collection. So right now it has only one, the table, one collection is a test data. So if you want to insert, what's the data type? It's the JSON file format. So you can create the, for example, I equal very simple, like the name or the SSN is equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Syntax Okay, so this one is created. The object I is created. So I is the field and value separated by the semicolon. If you want to have the more attribute, you can actually use in comma. So you can just follow the JSON format. Then, if you want to insert, it's a test, what is the data, and insert, insert I. That's it. So then we insert this one, the object I to the test data collection. If you want to see DB test data, fine. Then the already you can see, even though it's the same collection, same the table, there the fields are all different. Name Mongo and the X grade and name Lee SSN 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. But all of them has the underbar ID which I never specify. This is the built-in the attribute used for the primary key object ID. Then their object ID value are all different. It's a unit. So this is the idea. Over very high level overview of the MongoDB. I think the Vadia will introduce more details after the lecture. Okay. Let's continue to finish the lecture, and after break we can continue. So this is the create. Okay. So you can the MongoDB shell provide several commands. So you can type the help to get more list. So, but very similar as the MySQL. So if you already use the MySQL, it will not be difficult to understand such a command. So basically, it has the db.collection is a table name. Okay. Then your command. If you want to insert, insert. Okay. It's the khaki. What is the color of this one? Anyway, darker one, darker green shows the SQL for your understanding, not the MongoDB, the command. MongoDB is light green, this one, and this one is the SQL, so you can understand meaning of that. So quickly go over this one. When you insert, you can directly specify the field and value or JSON, or you can create the object using the variable like I or whatever. Then you can insert over here. But inside it will be the JSON, the model. So how to retrieve, how to search using the find. But I use the find, I demonstrate without any option, but sometimes I try to filter. So you can use a lot of things for the option of the find over here. So this is like the SQL, select asterisk from table. Okay. Then the find has, if you want to find the specific field and the value, you can do this one. So it's similar as the SQL with the where condition. Or you can use the regular expression over here, the operator. So or and so on, or in is a set operation. It's also supported. Since we have learned the SQL, this one looks like the easier, but actually the MongoDB command is more intuitively the human friendly. Okay, if you see this one, actually this one is the closer to the human perception. However, since we have used a lot for the SQL, so that is the reason SQL looks like the easier, but actually I believe that this one is the more intuitive the language. Okay. Then for example, this one we try to find this value, but if you specify the 0, it's not included. Like that. Update, this is supported, this is update for this one. Okay, so you will practice in the exercise lab. If you want to delete, okay, you can use the update command unset. Okay. Then remove. Isolation means, so actually MongoDB is based on the sharding, which means we have number of nodes. Later I will introduce. There is a primary. So it's a replica. First the replica first. Primary, then secondary. This secondary actually check the other secondary node, backup node, using the heartbeat. Key periodically check. So for the writing, first it write only the primary. Later, eventually, synchronize with the other secondary. Then for each the data, the primary, this is a replica. Each data is the distributed charge. So it's a part 1, part 2, part 3. So for the default isolation level, isolation means, so if you remember the characteristic of the transaction in relational database, it's ACID. A, atomicity, C, consistency, and D, durability. What is the I? It's isolation, which means when transaction is running, it's isolated. However, there are different levels of isolation. Highest isolation is if I read the data, even when I read the data, it's isolated, protected. Nobody can read. It will be locked. It's the highest level. The lowest level of isolation is even though I update the data, somebody can read, update data. Even that is not the committed. So different isolation level. So MongoDB supports such isolation level. As a default, it is only for each partition child. So that is the MongoDB isolation level. However, you can specify the global, the isolation level, but that may cause the latency to synchronize. So that you need to keep. So mostly, it is true, it's a distributed, the system. So you need to think about such a different level of the consistency isolation level. So you can specify in your the query to remove the or update the data. So this is the database object supported by the MongoDB. So database is a collection for the table. Instead of row or record is document. Index is called the index. I will introduce the more detail. Join. Instead, the join is actually the traditional join. For example, the nested loop join means first, for each driving table record, we need to check the driven table right-hand side. If they are matched, store the data into the memory. Then keep checking. Sometimes nested loop join is for each record here, old, and next old. So, or sometimes using index, you can find the directly. So, single loop join or sort merge, that is join. However, the MongoDB is limited. For the join is support, but the limited is the embedded way. So we will see the many-to-many, one-to-many example. Foreign key instead of foreign key is a reference. I will show you it's a really reference only. It's not the constraint level. Instead, it's a reference, direct kind of pointer. The way. Okay. So, one of the main characteristics of the MongoDB is no schema. It's absolutely schema free. So when you insert the new data for the ABC collection, you don't have to create even the collection ABC. Instead, just type the db underbar new collection the insert, then automatically. So collection will be created, then the whatever the attribute you are able to create. Okay. For the joining, there are different types of the MongoDB. The constraint, one is the embedding. Embedding means, so this is in the traditional relational database model, we have article, we have a user, comment separate, tag separate, category separate, is normalized. However, in the document database, we can include another entity as a part of attribute using the list. Okay, for example, it's a one-to-one. One-to-one is, so let's say there is a zip, is the Alabama and population and location, and city name is this one. Each zip code has the council person, one person. Okay, so one-to-one mapping. Okay, so which means, so we are going to embed to the zip. It may be possible council person is the main, the JSON, the document. Zip can be included. It depends. Depends on what. But here is already the primary key underbar ID. But when you create the first time, So depending on your application, this one can be primary and embed this. So it's up to you. This is a kind of practical example. We'd like to keep such information about the group. Okay, and to do that, so we can create a group and the title, author. There are multiple author, co-author, and the published date is one, and the publisher is the another embedded the information. So then we can actually create one-to-many. This time using the linking. The previous one is embedding. This one is based on the linking. Linking is, for example, is the publisher ID is already is you can find it from the ID, which means they do not provide a constraint like unlike the foreign key. Instead, using this is just already is the will be used for referencing. In your application, you need to check. Okay, so that is the difference. It's just refer. That's the linking. In case of many-to-many, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one is okay. We can embed. What about the many-to-many? We need to decide one of them as a primary. Okay? Depending on what? Application. So for example, we have the one book authored by the many author. Also one author may write many books. It's a many-to-many. So in case of you are focusing on the group, so you can see the name, another author, and their ID. You can put the under the ID for the author here. This is another example, student and book, and the student is ID is Joe, and so on. So basically, like the many other NoSQL database, the MongoDB use the combine. Okay, then it's you can say it's aggregation or the denormalization. The problem is how to combine. So you need to consider application level, what is the important one, what is the sub, and at the time you can use the linking or the embedding. This is the embedding approach for the student. Go check out. Okay. And also, MongoDB support the locality. When you run the query or like that, it supports the locality. Then if you already took the big data, we already discussed about the big data. It has the mapper and the reducer is based on the locality. Mapper is based on the locality. One, the job tracker access the block in the local. So then we can increase the performance. The MongoDB support the similar thing. So indexing supported by the MongoDB. Let's see this one. So this is the index of this one. For example, I'd like to search. I'd like to search the document whose score is equal less than the 30 at the time. If we do not have the index, we need to search the all document, all the object that include the score, then check whether this is less than 30. If you create the index for the score, first MongoDB collect all the object that include the score, the object, a score attribute. Okay. Then for that the document, it has the ascending or descending order. One means ascending. So in ascending order of a score, each one has the pointer of the object. Okay, document. So lowest score. What is the score? It's 16. So 16 is here. This is 18. 5. 5 is here. It has a pointer. And 18 is here. And 30 and so on. So if when you find the object, the query optimizer will look at this index. So this is a data structure, another data structure to keep all the object having the score ordered by the score. Okay, so this is it's a very simple indexing. Unlike the binary tree or the B plus tree, the whatever, it's a very simple, the index. There are different types of the index. So you can create the index. There's a command that is insert index for the square. 1 means ascending. -1 means descending. Okay. Then also you can see the existing index. So using get index, and also drop index, and the explain means if you remember, I don't think recently I introduced the explain. Explain means in the query optimizer. So query output of query optimizer is the kind of the how to access the data itinerary on your tree. So it shows the how to access the data. That is called the explain. So if you want to see how to access the data, you can find the explain. It shows the return the how to access the data. Hint is you can force it. The MongoDB has the optimizer. If you find the based on the score, then it will use the index created. However, sometimes, not always, the MongoDB optimizer use that index. At that time, forcefully, you can ask use this score index ascending order. Okay, so that is the hint. Okay, so it's a single field index we already checked before, and compound index is composite index. So two attributes are used for the indexing. In this case, user ascending order of user ID. So for each user, descending order of the store. So for example, the user AA1 to the here. This is for first user. This is the second user. This is the third user, first user. It's a descending order. Okay? 45 is the one square of the AA1. The next user, CA1, is a 75, 55, 30, and the MB1 is the third user, 30, and the first one, XYZ, 90. So 4 users, so it's a very simple indexing. Okay? So this will be managed, created by the MongoDB if you want to create the index. The last one is a multi-key index. So multi-key index will be used for this one. The address, it has the zip. So address.zip. So we can use such a zip code. Okay. So for example, it will be ordered by, it's an ascending order. It will be ordered. So address, but inside the nested the attribute, it will be the order, not along the document. Not only along the document, but also for the specific attribute. It's a multi-key index. So you will see such an example from the exercise lab also. Do you? Yes, not there. So you can see the existing index. Also, these are the example of the one. This is the explain. So when you select the data, but I'd like to see how to access the data. For example, here it's a multi-key. First, it's not multi-key, and it's a connected object. This one is connected. Then the index only, no, and then yes, this one is shows the such an information when you access the such a table. So this is a comparison between the without, and this is using index. So this index with information will be used. Okay, so almost done. So MongoDB supports the aggregation. Aggregation is not like the aggregate function used in the relational database. Instead, we try to, if you think about the map reduce, the mapper, we try to emit, select the information what we want as a key value. Then the reducer is, what's the main job of reducer? Combine. So aggregation means such a combine the result. So for example here, so match we try to find the state attribute whose state attribute is the TN, and we can make them group. So for example here, this is a document, we have the full document, then we try to find the state name is T and this one and this one. Okay? Then the the sum of the population. So population 1579, and this one population 4144. So we can combine, aggregate this. So if you add up, so that is a summation. It's the same as the reducer. Okay, in the reducer it's used. It's actually the simple version of map reduce program. So you don't have to implement the mapper and the reducer. If you are using MongoDB, you can simply query such a data. Okay, and also pipeline is additional kind of function to be used in the find. Limit number of returned items you can limit, and skip some of the return data will be ignored, avoid, and sort to sort the output like this. Also, it supports the map reduce, the mapper, and the reducer like this one. Okay, match and the group. So here the emit is the function, then we can query the summation, the output. So it's actually support the map reduce. So there are the other function when we select like the distinct, we can see that even though CA, NY, TN, TN, the 2 TN, but we can get the only 1 TN if we are using these things. So these are the comparison, the feature of the supported by the MongoDB comparing to the map reduce and the other grouping. So this you will practice for this MongoDB the feature. As I mentioned, it has the MongoDB support both the replication and the sharding. For the replication, as I mentioned, it has a primary, then eventually copy to the number of secondary. In case of primary is crashed, and what the problem? One of them will be selected as the primary. They use something voting algorithm, like the considering the resource and the performance. Then one of them will be automatically voted, then selected as the primary. The other will be used for the secondary. Okay. So this is the replication. And the sharding, so the data will be separate, partitioned by the along the server. This is the sharding. Okay. Okay. So that's it for the MongoDB. Also, one more thing. If you go to the MongoDB website, let me so you can see the different version of the MongoDB. Nowadays, they focus on the Atlas is cloud-based. So instead of installing on your local server or on your computer, you can actually use the MongoDB as a service. So right now, the MongoDB is supported by the Azure and Amazon AWS and Google GCP. So you already have the GCP, the credit. So if you go to the console, so you can type MongoDB. So you can see the service, but it's based on the launcher. Launcher means the company set up the virtual machine, including that their service, like the MongoDB. So if you go to the MongoDB, the launcher, they ask launch on compute engine. Okay, so you can click and create the virtual machine, including the MongoDB. Or if you want to use the service, MongoDB Atlas, then it directed to the MongoDB website. Then MongoDB actually supports as a service, so you can, they provide a free cloud. Where is it? Yes. the free credit for that cloud service. So you can, if you put some of the name, you can test the MongoDB. Any questions? Okay, so I think the worthwhile to use the MongoDB. So, and also the idea, motivation itself in the MongoDB is not very complicated. If you already understand the fundamental of the NoSQL database, they actually purely the typical NoSQL database. Okay, so after 8-minute break, 7:50. It was a long lecture, so 100 minutes. So we will have the exercise lab, maybe 20 minutes. Yes. So we will resume the 7:50.